At my wife's office holiday party, her manager looked me up and down and called me a hobby husband in front of 40 people. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. He had no idea what I did for a living, and he had even less idea what I was about to do to his. My name is Marcus Reyes. I am 41 years old, and I run a small structural engineering firm outside of Charlotte. We design the bones of buildings nobody notices until they fail. I am not flashy. I do not need to be. I married Elena when I was 32. She was 28, brilliant, the kind of woman who could read a spreadsheet and a room with the same precision. We had been married 11 years. We had a daughter named Ren, who was 8, and a son named Theo, who was 11, and treated every conversation like a negotiation. For 11 years, I thought we were solid ground. I was wrong, and the cracks did not show until the night of that party. The party was at a downtown hotel ballroom, hosted by the marketing firm where Elena worked as a creative director. Her boss, Derek Sloan, was the agency's managing partner, mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of man who shook your hand a half-second too long so you would remember whose grip was stronger. I had met him twice before at company events. Both times he treated me like background noise. This time was different. I arrived late because a client meeting ran long. Elena was already at the center of the room, laughing with a circle of coworkers, lit up in a way I rarely saw at home anymore. Derek stood close beside her, one hand resting on the back of her chair, not touching her, just near enough that everyone in the circle understood something without anyone saying it. When I walked up, Elena introduced me the way you introduce a coworker's plus one. This is my husband, Marcus. He does structural engineering. Derek looked at me like I had wandered in from the parking lot. Structural engineering, he repeated, smiling at the group around him. So basically, you tell other guys where to put the beams. Must be nice having a hobby that pays the bills while Elena does the real work here. The circle went quiet for one beat. Then somebody laughed, the kind of laugh people give when they are relieved it was not aimed at them. Elena's smile did not move, but her eyes flicked toward me and then away, fast, like she was checking whether I would make a scene. I did not. I set my drink down slowly and said, "The beams are usually the reason the building stays up during the part everyone forgets to thank an engineer for." Derek's smile thinned for half a second. Then he laughed it off and turned back to the group like I had already left. I did not say another word to him that night. I did not need to. What stayed with me on the drive home was not the insult. It was the half-second Elena's eyes had spent checking the temperature of the room instead of standing next to me. That kind of thing settles into your chest and does not leave. I gave it 3 days of quiet observation before I did anything. Elena came home later than usual twice that week, both times with a reasonable explanation about deadlines. I did not push. On the 4th day, I called a private investigator a colleague had used during a contract dispute, a retired detective named Hollis Greer. I told him I needed discrete documentation, nothing more. He asked how long I wanted coverage and whether I wanted full reporting. I told him yes to both. Hollis called me back within a week. There were photographs. Elena and Derek at a coffee shop 2 blocks from her office, on a day she told me she had a dentist appointment. Elena and Derek in a parking garage downtown, on an evening she said she was working late. The 3rd photograph closed the door on any doubt left in me. The 2 of them at a hotel bar on a night I was home helping Theo finish a science project on bridges, which felt like a cruel coincidence given what Derek had said about beams. But the photographs were not what changed everything. It was the financial records Hollis included almost as an afterthought. Over the past 7 months, transfers had moved out of our joint savings account in small amounts, $200 here, $300 there, listed as payments to a vendor called Sloan Creative Consulting. I stared at that name for a long time. Sloan. I called our accountant the next morning and asked him to pull every transfer tied to that vendor. The total came to just under $5,000. Elena had not only been seeing him, she had been funding him. I called my attorney, a methodical man named Walter Briggs, who had handled contracts for my firm for a decade. Within a day, he referred me to a colleague who specialized in family law and asset protection. Before that meeting happened, something else moved the timeline forward. I came home one evening to find Ren doing homework at the kitchen table and Theo on the couch with headphones on, both of them fine, both of them unaware. What was not fine was the voice coming from Elena's home office, low, easy, male. I stood in the doorway. She was on a video call, laptop angled so I could see Derek's face on the screen, relaxed, mid-sentence. She sensed me before she turned, and the expression on her face was not guilt. It was calculation, like she was already deciding her next move. "Work call," she said, closing the laptop. I did not answer. I told her dinner was in 20 minutes and walked back down the hall because the conversation I needed to have was not with her. It was with lawyers, accountants, and Hollis Greer, who I planned to call again first thing in the morning because Derek Sloan was about to learn what it cost to call another man's work a hobby. Hollis flagged something within days that turned this from a painful marriage problem into something else entirely. Sloan Creative Consulting was not a freelance side account. It was a registered business entity, filed 8 months earlier with a single member listed as the agent. The address on file was a mailbox rental store on the edge of downtown. The agent's name was not Derek. It was his younger brother, Cole Sloan. It was a shell, my attorney said when I brought him the documents. Which means those transfers from your account were never consulting fees. They were personal payments funneled through a fake business, so they would not raise questions on a bank statement. That is not just a marital issue anymore, Marcus. That is potential financial fraud. I spent the next 2 weeks doing 3 things at once, the way I triage a structural report when 3 problems surface in the same inspection. First, I protected the finances, separating business accounts from personal ones and flagging everything for monitoring. Second, I arranged for the kids to stay with my sister for a weekend while the legal groundwork settled. Third, I learned that Derek Sloan's agency was hosting a major client showcase the following month, a presentation meant to land a contract with a national retail chain, the kind of pitch that builds or breaks an agency's year. I had a friend, a freelance audio-visual technician named Priya Nair, who had worked agency events for years and had been hired for Derek's showcase. She owed me a favor from a conference we had both worked years earlier. I did not ask her to do anything dishonest. I asked her for 30 minutes of access to the event's presentation system the night before, using credentials the venue used for every client event, credentials that, as it turned out, Derek had set using his own office extension number. Priya mentioned it with the kind of quiet disbelief only a tech professional reserves for that level of carelessness. I built one slide at my kitchen table after the kids were asleep. No outrage, no commentary, just time-stamped financial records, the business registration with his brother's name highlighted, and a single line underneath. Some structures fail because nobody checks the foundation. I uploaded it and waited. The showcase was held on a Thursday evening in a glass-walled venue downtown, 60 people in tailored clothes, soft lighting, the kind of room built to impress. Derek took the stage at 7 and worked through his deck with the polish of a man who had rehearsed every word in front of a mirror. Vision, market position, client wins, growth projections. Then the screen changed. The room shifted the way a room shifts when the temperature drops without anyone touching the thermostat. People leaned forward. Someone near the front turned to whisper to the person beside them. I watched Derek read the screen in real time, watched the confidence drain out of his posture in a way that no amount of tailoring could fix. Near the back, a silver-haired man in a charcoal suit stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked out without a word. I had done enough research to know that was Howard Sloan, Derek's father and the agency's founding partner. I slipped out the side door before the room had finished understanding what it had just seen. What followed moved fast. Word reached 3 of my client referrals that someone had been quietly suggesting I was unstable and unreliable, the same kind of whisper campaign Derek had run before, except this time it was aimed at me. The custody proceedings moved alongside all of it. Elena's attorney attempted to paint me as erratic, citing an incident at school pickup that supposedly never happened. It had not happened, and the school's exterior cameras proved it within a single afternoon of footage review. The judge reviewed 12 months of school records, pediatric visit logs, and teacher statements describing me as steady and present, and the temporary custody order came down in my favor. with Elena's time scheduled and supervised pending the rest of the case. Derek's agency lost the retail contract within a month. His father stepped back from funding the firm's expansion entirely. The fraud referral Hollis and my attorney built moved into a formal financial investigation that would take months to resolve, regardless of where anyone tried to relocate to avoid it. The defamation case settled quietly, and I put every dollar of it into a college fund for Ren and Theo without telling either of them where it came from. The divorce was finalized the following spring. The custody order became permanent. Primary time with me, supervised time for Elena until the financial case closed. My firm had its strongest year yet. 2 new contracts came in from companies that had heard, in the quiet way these things travel, that the man behind the beams was someone worth trusting with a foundation. On a Saturday in early summer, I took Ren and Theo to the Science Museum, her idea, 3 months in the making. She stood in front of the suspension bridge exhibit for almost 10 minutes without saying a single word, which might be a record for her. Theo read every placard twice, and then tried to explain tensile strength to his sister with the kind of seriousness he brought to everything he cared about. I stood back and watched them. On the drive home, Theo stayed awake long after Ren had fallen asleep in the back seat. Somewhere past the city limits, he said, without turning from the window, "Things feel steadier now." I looked at him in the mirror and told him I thought so too. He nodded and went quiet, and I drove the rest of the way home thinking about what it actually takes to rebuild something after it has been taken apart. Not the legal maneuvering, not the strategy, just the unglamorous daily work of showing up, the kind of foundation nobody notices until you realize it never once gave way.